Hey guys, Alan from the Styrian Air Force here again with another episode in the a long overdue episode in the In Focus series. I apologize for the delay in getting my videos out. I've been busy with work, but of course that's not your problem. So let's just get down to it. My next video here is going to be about airbrushes. We're not going to look at suggested airbrushes or anything like that. We're going to talk about maintenance and cleaning. I see a lot of this on the Facebook groups and so on and so forth about issues people have with airbrushes and how they're related to maintenance. But before we get into that, I just got a little pet peeve that I want to talk about that I see a lot on the groups. Usually it starts with something like a member asking for some advice about an airbrush to buy. Usually, mentioning that he has a budget, whether it be $40, $60, $80, what have you. And usually he'll post a picture or something like one of the Sparmax type airbrushes from Amazon and asking about people's opinion about the quality of this airbrush. And I see all kinds of suggestions about, what they should get and what they shouldn't get, and people even going as far as making the suggestion of, oh, why don't you take over your kid's paper route and save your pennies, buy this, that, or the other. And a lot of times it's usually a pretty expensive airbrush that they're suggesting. Short answer to this is yes, the airbrush that you're looking at for that budget will do the job. I mean, granted, yes, I'll be the first to admit I'd love to get a Badger Sotar. I would love to have a Patriot. I would love to have an H&S Infinity. But quite frankly, I think for the hobby, in a lot of cases, some of these airbrushes are a little overkill. And I'm going to explain why. So first of all, I see a lot of people when they're condemning these airbrushes that they're talking about on Amazon. Oh, you don't want to be buying some Chinese piece of crap, blah, blah, blah. They don't last. Yeah, I can agree with that. There is to a certain degree where their quality is not, the very best. I see a lot of people suggesting, buying an Iwata Neo, which I got, thank you to one of the members of one of the scale modeling groups that I'm with. When I had a airbrush breakdown, he actually sent me one of his spares that he was no longer using, which was an Iwata Neo. It's actually a very good airbrush. But while we're sitting down here and, people are talking about, how good and how bad these Chinese airbrushes, I just want to point out that looking at the Iwata, if you see just down here in the bottom, it says assembled in China. So while you guys are going on about brushes made in China, blah blah blah, and just to mention, this was assembled in China, made from components in Taiwan. So that's basically the first thing I gotta point out. The thing is, unless you're doing high quality portraits, photo retouching, even to go back into the modeling aspect of, say, miniatures. Me personally, I don't think some of these really ultra high-end airbrushes are necessary. We're not doing a lot of work that requires the intricate detail that some of these airbrushes are capable of. In most cases, we're just basically taking a model, especially with a lot of aircraft stuff. We're taping off an area, masking off an area, and just blowing down a color. In a lot of ways, an airbrush in modeling is nothing more than a very refined spray can, if you ask me. What you're really looking for in an airbrush is something that will put down an even coat of color smoothly and well, and do that several times over. And a lot of these cheaper airbrushes that you see on Amazon, surprisingly, they get better the more you use them. As the needle becomes a little bit more polished and refined, they actually work better. Now, I'm sure a lot of people right now are about ready to turn off this video, and quite frankly, I wouldn't blame them. But one of the pitfalls with getting into airbrushes is that people tend to forget. Okay, so a guy's got 40 bucks to buy an airbrush. He's looking at a $20 airbrush off Amazon. Rather than giving this guy all kinds of advice about, what airbrush to buy, the, $100 one, $200 one, $900 one, $10 million airbrush, let's really properly advise a guy. Yes, that airbrush will do a decent job. Yes, you're going to want to improve up into something a little higher quality as you get into the modeling. But also understand that you are going to be spending a lot of money. Because now you're looking at buying a hose if that airbrush kit does not come with one. You're looking at compressors. You're looking at airbrush ready paints. You're looking at thinners. You're looking at cleaners. You're looking at flow improvers, fluid retarders. It's going to be an ongoing, I don't want to say money pit, but that's the direction you're heading. I mean, you're talking like I said, a whole new paint line, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I mean, if the guy's only got $40 to spend, he's in for a big surprise. So, you know what? And getting some of these higher quality airbrushes does not necessarily make you a better painter or a better modeler. If you ask me, trying to get out there and spend money on the, gold-plated, platinum-tipped, diamond-encrusted needle airbrush that costs, $700, doesn't make you a better modeler. It just makes you broke. So with that being said, let's get on to the video that we're actually here to do. So what I've got here is 5 of my, pretty much general use airbrushes that I tend to use a lot of the time. They tend to be pretty much in each different category of airbrushes. So, we've got our Pash H series here, which is a single action external mix. I've got my VL here, which is a dual action external mix. I've got my Iwata Neo here, which is a dual action internal mix. And I've got one of those, very infamous looking Sparmax type airbrushes, which has been really good to me. I've been pretty happy with it for the years that I've been using one of these. That's also dual action internal mix. And then I've also got another Badger style airbrush here. Reason I got these 5 here is because these are pretty much, like I said, the main configurations for just about 80% of the airbrushes out on the market. And their disassembly is going to be basically the same, and their maintenance is going to be basically the same. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at each one, how they break down, and the best ways to clean them. Okay, first one we're going to take a look at is the simplest one to do, which would be the Pash H series. So it's got very few parts that really requires cleaning. So we're going to have to look at the paint cup. And as you can see, this one's got quite a lot of buildup in it. I actually purposely haven't been cleaning my airbrushes in anticipation of doing this video. This brush I primarily use for primers a lot. And I use the automotive grade type primer. So this kind of builds up in there pretty quickly. Again, like I said, this is a single action external mix, being that single action it's just basically depress the trigger and you get air and paint flow all in one. And the air and paint mix externally at this point, so it's outside the airbrush. So basically the teardown for these is, it's got a little nut here. Just got to get your little Allen tool, take that out, and the needle here, which really comes apart there, and then you want to take off the air cap. Essentially, this is the main operating parts of the airbrush. This is the part that you really need to be focused on. Unless you're a clean freak, most of this you don't really have to worry about. Yes, it's nice to keep the body clean, keep everything pristine. The only other thing you may want to add into that would be the trigger section here, which basically just screws off like that. Over time, you might want to get into the valve mechanism in here just to clean it up and lube it up a bit, but that's hardly ever necessary. Now, one of the main things that I use for cleaning airbrushes, a little while back I was into doing metal recycling and so forth, so on and so forth, and I went to a body shop and I got a bunch of drums that carried their gun wash for the spraying in the auto body shops, and in the bottom there was a little bit of residue of their gun cleaner. Now, in some places, in some states, in some provinces, even here in Canada, there is a license that's required to get this thing. Fortunately, I have quite a bit to last me a while, and this really is the absolute best thing that I've ever had for cleaning airbrushes. A similar product you can use here would be a lacquer thinner. The lacquer thinner tends to work on a lot of different things. It will work on acrylic because it does a really good job in helping to dissolve some acrylics. So basically, my first part of everything here is to get all this stuff into this and just leave them to soak for a little bit. Now, it is key to note that there is a small washer O-ring here. You do not want to put this O-ring in this solution. It may eat the rubber O-ring, so I typically will take that off. And then everything goes in there. This thing does carry a bit of fuming, so I would just leave that there and let that soak for a little bit. Okay, so while that soaks there for a bit and starts acting on all of that, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the tools that I use for cleaning. So pretty much some of the things you want to have is, it's good to have a bit of a toothpick. It is not exactly essential, but it is helpful. Other things that's good to have would be Q-tips. Another good thing, that cleaning brushes, you know, the go-betweens. I get these. I pick these up at Shoppers Drug Mart. You can even get some of these things in some dollar stores. And it's just got a very small little brush, and these are great for cleaning out the nozzles for the airbrushes. Another thing that you can get in a lot of places is a good cleaning kit. As you can see, this one here has 5 different brushes that can get pretty much into all the crevices of the airbrush. Another thing you're going to need is the tools appropriate to your airbrush. As you can see, when I was pulling that apart, you know, the Allen wrench for the nut. Every airbrush basically is going to come with a tool of some kind, whether it be just for the nozzle with like the Neo types, or, you know, some of them with the wrenches like this for like the VL type. Another thing that's great for cleaning the airbrushes is these little fine tip Q-tips. You can see they've got a little fine edge from Tamiya, and these are pretty good as well. Other things that you see a lot of guys in the forums talking about is the paper points. Those are really great for it. Unfortunately, I do not have any at the time of making this video, so we're just going to forego that part of the option. Another good thing to have would be beeswax. This is great for doing seals and making sure your threads are all sealed up. And if you've got it as an airbrush lubricant, I just got this into one of these vape bottles here. Different places call it a different thing. You can use as simple as baby oil, though I would recommend getting something that's more made for an airbrush. You may see it called needle juice in some places, and that's some of the items that you want. So pretty much that's the basic cleaning up tools that you're going to need. There is one other tool that I do use periodically, which is an ultrasonic cleaner, but we will look at that later because that carries quite a bit of controversy, and we'll talk about that later on in the video. So once we've had the parts soaking for a while, we're just going to get them out of this solution, and then we're just going to start cleaning them all up. So like for this, I just, you know, use a Q-tip here on this. It's probably a good idea to keep this solution here. And there you go. You don't really need to get, you know, down into here because this is an external mix. All your paint collection is going to be in and around this area here, right at the opening here. So you don't really have anything that builds up inside here, because all that's going through there is pretty much just air. One thing I did forget to do, that is very critical, is this section here. Now if you can see really down in there, there is a locking screw there. Behind that locking screw is a nylon washer. Before putting it in a solution like this, it would probably be a good idea to remove that, because there's really no telling what kind of reaction it's going to have with the washer. So with this, paint is going to come through this, so I just usually just go through with it like that. Or if you've got it, like I said, you could use one of these brush sets here and just clean it out inside there. Wipe off the outside of it here, and if you feel like you need to, just dip it in, rinse it out in there, get it on your paper here to settle. And that's pretty much all you're going to be doing here with this. Again, here we go with this. This would be pretty much a needle for this particular airbrush, and you just want to get inside there. And you can see all the stuff coming out of it here. And that's pretty much cleaned out. The last part of this is going to be the paint cup. This can really be the biggest pain in the ass part of it here. So I'm just going to clean out inside here with that. And that's the type of crud that you're going to get out of it. Just dump that. And it's really just trying to get in there and get as much crud off as possible. Get all the way down inside there. Because what will happen is that the stuff builds up right here in the bottom of the cup here, and will block the paint feed up into there. Now most of what I'm doing here really is deep cleaning. This is something I would probably recommend doing maybe once a month or after any major projects. Now as you can see, there's still a significant amount of buildup in the bottom of that cup. You might want to use something like the toothpick in here to kind of start breaking it up a little bit, because this is built up. Like I said, I've been using this one here and I haven't cleaned it in a couple of months. Only because I wanted to have it really dirty for this video. So what I'm going to do is, this cup still has quite a significant buildup in the bottom. I'm just going to get it to sit back in the solution for a little bit, and then we'll come back to that afterwards. Okay, so now we've got the cup pretty much cleaned out. I did quite a bit of it off camera. We want to just get this airbrush back together. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the air cap. We're going to replace that washer on there. And we're going to screw that into the end. You're going to get basically the cone in and then the needle. Those will thread in together here. Put your locking nut back in, and then you cup back in. So this is basically back to ready to go operational status. The only thing I've got left to get out of the solution is the trigger cap, and this one's ready to go. The next one I want to look at is going to be my Pash VL series dual action external mix. I haven't used this one in a little bit, quite frankly, to be honest, so this one really isn't dirty internally. Yeah, the body's got a bit of crud on it, but like I said, that would be a personal preference. This isn't a military parade, so I'm not worried about getting it 100% clean. But pretty much the same kind of cleaning aspect I would follow on this. So I would get the cup out. I would pretty much soak that. We've got a protective cap here. Now this is where some of the tools come into play. So you're going to need to pull the whole holder cap off. And then this would be the needle cone. Now you would also clean this out basically using one of the brushes here, or your dental pick here, your periodontal tools, whatever you want to call it, or even the paper tips, and you want to get that cleaned out. The other thing you want to be able to take off is unscrew the back here, loosen the screw, and take the needle out. Now there's also another thing. I mean, I was taught this by an art teacher once. When pulling your needles out of an airbrush, wherever possible, because this is not necessarily always possible with every single airbrush, wherever possible, you want to take the needle out the front. Reason being is that if there's any buildup on the needle, if you're pulling it in the back, you're pulling it back into the trigger chamber. You don't want to be pulling that in. There is actually a seal in here that prevents stuff from coming back into here. If you got a lot of dried built up crud on this and you start pulling it through, you risk damaging that seal. And trust me, that seal is an absolute friggin' pain in the ass to clean. Again, being an external mix, much of the body here may not need cleaning. You are going to need to clean up in here, and again, that is where these smaller brushes come in handy. You can also separate the outside of the ear screw off of here, and you want to make sure all of the inside there is completely clean. There is no seal here, but what is a good thing to do if you wanted to is apply the beeswax on it, apply a little heat to it with a quick flick of a cigarette lighter and get it to melt in, and then you screw it back together. And then all you need to do with this is pretty much put it all back together exactly the same way how you took it apart. And some airbrushes do come with one of these. This is very good with these because these needles tend to stick quite a bit out the front of these, and then that's ready to go. The next airbrush we're going to look at is a dual action, more of an internal mix airbrush, because the paint mixture does occur inside the airbrush. As I should mention, the mistake I made was the VL is also an internal mix versus the H, which was an external mix. So let me just correct myself there on that. This is made by a Canadian company up here called Mastercraft. This came as part of a kit with a little cheapy compressor that actually works pretty good. The airbrush itself is not really the best. It probably is made to look and operate similar to like a Badger 100 or a Badger 120 or something in that thing. But again, like I said, most of the teardown of these airbrushes are going to be pretty much the same. So with this one, we're going to get the paint cup out. We're going to drop that into our cleaning solution. We're going to take the tip off here, and again, you've got another washer here you want to get taken off. So like again, you don't want to have that seal in there. This I would never also recommend, but like I said, these have been sitting for a while with a lot of crud built. And the other thing you also want to separate from it too is the tip. So every airbrush, like I said, is going to come with its own tool. This is from my Neo, but 99% of them will fit this part as well. So you just want to do a little torque. Well, don't torque it too much, and get the needle off. And then you want to drop that in there. Now, as you can see, there's a seal here on this. It's just really just that black ring. You also want to get that off. And with the airbrush nozzle, there's one there. You want to get that off as well. Again, same here with this. You want to get the needle off. Now, as previously before mentioned, as a customary practice, you don't want to pull the needle out the back. Unfortunately, some airbrushes come with this, I don't even know what the technical term for it is, but this type of a piece would prevent you from pulling the needle out the front. So this would be one of those exceptional cases where, unfortunately, you're going to have to pull it out the back. Now, you're also going to need to do a little bit of cleaning in here, so we'll get to that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the rest of these seals off, get them in the solution to soak, so we can start soaking off a lot of that buildup. Okay, so this thing's had about an hour to soak, and everything should be pretty much nicely loosened. I decided not to put the air cap or the nozzle in. The washers became a little bit of a pain in the nuts to get out. So this really was the part that really needed to be cleaned. So coming in with the interdental brushes, this is where these really help you out in here. You get these pretty nicely clean. This one's actually not too bad. I believe this airbrush was cleaned previously, so it didn't really need a whole lot of cleaning. Same with this. Actually, this one's actually pretty clean, because I rarely use this airbrush anymore. Like I said, I use it mostly for clear coats. One thing that I would like to know is that when you're just selecting an airbrush, always look for one where this part of the cap, you can see it here, actually is hollow. If you look at, like, say for example, the Iwata Neo, you can see how it's completely hollow in there. What's good about that is that if you really want to get close up and get some really fine lines, even with some of these cheapy airbrushes, if you take this cap off and spray with it just like that, you can really get some fine details. But I find that it's only the ones that have this hollowed out cap actually will do that. So this one here isn't really that big on doing it. We can come in with one of these as well, and then these can get into some of these areas here pretty good as well. Unfortunately, this one's not doing that great a job. As you can see, you can get all the way up into some of these nozzles, though I much prefer these interdental brushes, as a matter of fact. And they also come in different sizes, so you can get, really thin ones, and then you can get some thicker ones. These really thin ones are pretty good for the nozzles. And once you get everything cleaned up, it's pretty much basically get this thing back together. So good thing to do is just to get it hand tight at first, then get the tool. Let's give it one slight little tug. You don't need to make these tight. This is where people tend to snap these parts off all the time. Get your seal back on here, get your O-ring back on here. Put it back together. Get your piece put back in, and put our needle back through. Get your cap on. And there you go. Now the only thing that's missing from here right now is the cup, which is still in there. I got it soaking a little bit more. Pretty much it's the same process as when we did it, where we did it on the H and the VL. You're just going to basically follow that same protocol. We're going to get on to the Neo, which is our gravity fed double action internal mix. Now the other brush that I have here is, like I said, one of those Sparmex types. The only reason I'm basically going to do a demonstration on two similar airbrushes is that I had a little thing happen with this one, where the nozzle seal, I broke it, and I want to show you an option that you can do if you can't get a replacement seal. Here we go. So now we've got the Iwata Neo ready for strip down. So complete strip down for me on this would be get the mixing cup off, get the header plate off, separate the air cap from the cone, get ready to remove the needle. Now this one here, you can just remove the needle through the back, or like I said, with the idea of pulling it out the front, just undo the nozzle, like Because really what you want to do is get a complete tear down on this thing. And then you can pull the needle out the front. However, this one, like I said, has been sitting for a while. Yeah, so this needle is kind of stuck in there, so I'm gonna have to get this loosened up a bit. So what I'm gonna probably do here is I'm gonna have to get a brush and drop some of this stuff down in here. Let that soak for a little bit until it loosens up. So after a few minutes, I got it to loosen up, a little effort. So here's one of the things I was talking about, where if you have one of these airbrushes where it's possible to pull the needle out the front, it is always best, or I strongly recommend doing it that way. If you look on the needle here, especially if you're a little bit of a pig like I am, or was for this demonstration, like I said, I purposely left these like this because I had intention of doing this video, is that if you try to pull a needle out the back, all of this would have gone back into your chamber back here on the needle, and it would have created probably not the best situation you want to get into. So we'll get the needle out there. Now, other things that you can do here is you can get into a full clean. So you can, and this is going to be a complete strip down on this because I really don't know how much gunk I left in this, so we're going to do that. So you also want to take off this part here, and you want to inspect that part there. So it's really not that bad. It is okay. And then you want to take the tightening nut for the needle. And you also, on some occasions, this is not very common to do. Not everybody does this as a full thing, but like I said, this is going to be a complete tear down on this. So you want to unscrew this piece back here. Now on some airbrushes, this little flange comes off separate. Actually, you'll see it on the Sparmax type that I've got there. And then you can take out the plunger. So this now is in full teardown. Now the thing is, there is, I don't know if you can see it down inside this too well, but there is another nut back there that holds a seal that basically cleans the needle when it retracts back and forth. You can take those out. Me personally, I don't recommend it because it is a pain in the nuts to get it back in, to get that to seat properly. There is a particular tool for some of these airbrushes that can take that out. This particular one here, looking at it now, does not have one. I do know this one has that part in here which is removable, but I would say leave that alone. So what we're going to do here now with this is, so I got the o-ring off of that, and I'm going to put that aside. We don't really need to dip the needle, nor do I need the locking nut for the needle to go in there, but everything else is going into this thing. So now, considering how much buildup was in this that I had to loosen it up, I'm going to submerge it in the cleaning solution, but only just the head part here, only because I want to have all of that soaked off. And then the other thing is, it's going to be the needle is going to go in there to soak. Now, because this thing actually has a lot of fumes to it, do a partial makeshift seal here with a piece of foam like that. Now that this thing has had some time to soak, now we can look to clean it up. I'm just going to clean the needle off. So we got the needle completely clean. Now we can take the body out here. While I'm here, I'll just clean the whole thing down. At this point, can come in with Q-tips and clean out all of this. So this is all the sludge and crap that's been building up in here this whole time. Yay me. No, I wouldn't recommend to anybody to let their airbrush get to this, but like I said, this was for a demonstration purpose. That's the only reason this airbrush even got close to looking like this. So this is days and days, a week, almost 2 weeks of sludge built up in here. And I'll probably just take it in here and rinse it up a little bit and get some of that crap to fall out. And then I'm just going to go in with one of these brushes here, a little deeper in, all the way into the back. So as you can see, I've got it all the way into the back there, right into the tube. And we'll get that all cleaned up. So pretty much now, this has been completely cleaned out. Still got some sludge down in there. And we'll just get there. So now we've got this pretty much all cleaned up. Everything's completely clean in there. Got the body all cleaned up. Come here, just use a little bit on this, get that all nicely cleaned up. So now we got the barrel all cleaned. So we got the needle clean, we got the body clean, we still got all the other stuff over here. Now we got to get into this and start getting parts. So here's a color cup. You can just basically wipe this down with some paper towel, clean off the outside, just insert a bit in here. Clean out the inside. Let's get a bit of this Q-tip here. Now these are some of the workhorse airbrushes that I have. Between this one and the others, the Sparmax style one, these do probably 90% of my work. So these do get pretty messed up. So now we got the color cup. So let's clean out this. Get all of this cleaned up, get the nipple cleaned off there. Again, you can come in with a Q-tip, clean up some of that. Or you can just go in with a brush here, make sure it comes out the other end there as best as you can. You can use one of these here and get it clean so you can see the little tip of it sticking out the end there. So now we know we got that all cleaned. Then we got the little nozzle here, so let's get into that. Just clean it out with these little brushes here. As you can see, they get in there really nice. See the sludge popping out on the other side. Sometimes it might not be such a bad idea. You can use a needle, but very carefully, and seat it in there, and you get all of that sludge there coming out of it. If you have an old needle, I would probably recommend you use that. One of the things I do have here is an old sewing needle. Pretty much does the same thing, but I'm less likely to damage the one that works the airbrush there. So it'll come through there a little bit better. You just kind of want to ream out all of that crud out of it. And then essentially that's there. So you just want to go through everything and then get all the other parts out. Here's the trigger piece, the plunger for the trigger. You know, that's nicely cleaned. Okay, here's part of the slider for the airflow. Make sure that's all nice and clean. Air cap part out. So we're just gonna get that all cleaned out. Just generalize with just this brush. Then what we can do is dip it in here, rinse it all off, and then get it all dried back down. So we have all our parts cleaned up. Now we got to reassemble. So first thing I want to do is I want to get this piece here back in. And we're going to slide the spring over that. And then we're going to come back in with the part that holds all of that in. And we're just going to pull it back slightly and get the plunger in. But you want to make sure you get the plunger with a slot going along with it, so that it matches up for when the needle is to come in. And then you're just going to screw this all the way in, or as much as you need. So that's there pretty much. We're going to put our O-ring back on the bottom of the color cup. That's in place. We can screw our color cup back in. We can put our cap piece back onto this. And we'll just make sure that's all nicely cleaned up and shined up. Now here's the part I was telling you about. So I lost the O-ring. I actually cut it by mistake, putting it away. So what I would suggest here with this, so really what you just want here is just a small bit of this beeswax right on it. Okay, just a small amount. And then what you want to do is just come with a flame, just lick at it like that, just enough so it melts and goes around all of the threads. And then we're just going to screw this one back in. So what's going to happen is the wax is going to basically perform the function of the seal. And then we'll just give it a little tight. You don't want to wrench that in. And then you can reseat the needle. Get the locking nut back on back. Put your cover cap back on. Get your rear cover back into place, and then screw your valve back in. So your Iwata Neo is all ready, set to go. Next up is my other workhorse. Basically, I got this from a guy in Scarborough, Ontario, called Airbrushing for You. Guy does a lot of custom airbrush work, and he also sells airbrush and accessories and parts and all of that. It only cost me maybe 60 bucks Canadian. I don't know what that works out to US dollars or English pounds for you guys out there who are watching, but I'm sure you can look up all the conversion rates. And it's really been an excellent airbrush. I've been pretty happy with it. I find it very comparable to the Iwata Neo, and I've had a lot of very good results with these. I actually have two of these now. I use one for acrylics, and I have another one for enamels and lacquers, the few that I do have. So now we're going to strip this one down and pretty much do with this what we did with the Neo. So I'm going to get the back cap off. We're going to get the front end off here. Then we're going to take the nozzle off. As you can see, with the three that I've done so far with the nozzle, I've been using the same Neo wrench. So they're all pretty much the same. The differences might be the thread size or the thread pitch here. I'm still going to do the whole tear down here. So now we've got that. We'll loosen up the nut. As you can see, the nut even is similar to the Iwata one. And we're going to get my needle. Oh, and again, this one's a little frozen in, so I am going to have to go back to what I did before and get some of this stuff in here. And we'll just let that soak for a bit and loosen it all up. And here we go, same as with the Iwata. You got all that crud built up that was kind of keeping the needle in there. So now we want to get all of that out. So you do, like I said, you don't want to pull all of that back through there. Though, like I guess in most cases, your airbrush really wouldn't get to this point anyways. So we've got that. We'll get the needle in there. And again, for this, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing I did with the Neo. With that body, we've got the screw there. Difference is, no, this comes separate. Like I said, this one I use probably 90% of the time. I think I even use this more than the Neo. And we're going to get the valve off here. And there is an O-ring in here that I want to make sure gets taken out. Because no, I don't want that to get all swollen. So again, I'm going to do with this pretty much the same as I did with the Iwata. I'm going to get this in here to soak. I'm going to put in my makeshift seal here, and then we're going to leave that for a little bit to completely soak off. Also, when we get back to this, I'm going to talk about the use of an ultrasonic cleaner. Like I said, this is a thing with quite a bit of controversy attached to it. There's a lot of people who support it. There's a lot of people who are very much against it. I'm going to discuss both sides of the coin. I at first did particularly like them. But then I found out about some of the hazards of using it, and we'll talk about that, and those will be the negative. Okay, so again, we got this ready to go. Got our needle cleaned up, and then we'll clean off the body for this airbrush here. Man, this one is really filthy. Yeah, this one I really let go bad. You can see all that crud built up down in the bottom. You want to get out all of that too. And we're going to do what we did before. We're going to clean out in here. It's really bad. I mean, look at all that schmuck. So now you can see we're getting a little better in there. And we really just want to keep cleaning and keep scrubbing in there. Now you can see we're getting a lot better down in there. I'm going to come back in with the brush again. And just keep cleaning on this. So after about, I don't know, 30 minutes of some intense scrubbing and re-rinsing, you know, there's still stuff coming out of this. I'm actually really embarrassed to be showing this on video because this is really bad. But anyways, as you can see down in there now, a lot of the crud has gotten out. There is a little locking screw back here I've ended up having to take out to get really down in there to clean out. You can see even down in there it's a little bit on the nasty side, but everything is cleaned out. So here's the thing though, we're going to go to, let's just get all of this stuff here out of the way. We are going to go down the road of a bit of controversy. And that controversy involves one of these. This is an ultrasonic cleaner that I got through, actually I don't even remember where my wife got it, but we got it through the internet. Like I said, at first I was a firm believer in these things, and I've been really happy with the performance on it. So as you can see now, there's some crud down in there that I probably need to clean out. So let me get this all cleaned out and we'll get right back. Okay, so here's another lesson. Keep your things for cleaning things clean themselves. Okay, so now we've got this pretty much done. Now here's the thing with these ultrasonic cleaners. They work really great. I'm not gonna lie, they work really, really good in cleaning these things out. So all this stuff, when you really think you've got everything cleaned out, there's just still that much grit and grime left in there. So that is the really good part of it. So it really helps in dissolving all of that. The bad part of this, now this is where I seriously advise this. If you choose to use an ultrasonic cleaner to clean your airbrush, please remember two things. Do not run it for extended periods, and two, make sure every threaded surface in your airbrush is completely disassembled. Reason I say this is because of the sonic vibrations, it runs the risk of damaging the threadings, especially brass parts like this. And even on this with the nozzles and all of that. Considering that most airbrushes are made of quite a bit of brass, I would strongly suggest disassembling everything, because what will happen is these threaded areas, they all vibrate against each other and then they start chipping, and brass is a pretty soft metal compared to some other things, so that tends to cause, you know, threaded areas to fall apart and degrade, and over time nothing gets screwed together tight anymore. And as you can see, I've got everything pulled down here completely. Now, when it comes to the body, typically I would advise against inserting the entire body in. Now, considering that this has all been stripped out, so all threaded pieces have been taken apart out of this, I'm going to do it in here. But another threat that you run with these things, with the ultrasonic cleaners, is a lot of the areas along here, especially on some brands, where they are soldered together. You also run the risk of the ultrasonic cleaner rupturing those wells and those soldered seams. So something like this, I think this is pretty much all cast. I'm not 100% sure, don't hold me to it, but again, the advisory is make sure everything is completely disassembled. You want no threaded parts resting against each other, and also make sure all your seals are out too, because the ultrasonic cleaner, once you put the solution in there and it's running, the solution does get pretty hot. So what do I use as a cleaning solution? Well, there's several different kinds that you can use, simple green, blah blah blah, but most of these degreasers is pretty much what you're going to use. I pretty much use Super Clean. It's one of the cheaper ones that I've found, and it works pretty damn good. So what I would do is just eyeball it. You're just going to put it in a little bit, almost like a 1-to-1 mixture of Super Clean, and you want it to just about cover everything in there. And then your other part is going to be pretty much water, and you want to have everything pretty much submerged in it. No, it's probably not the greatest idea that I just did that, because no, you can't see what's going to happen in there, and that's really what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave everything in here to soak for a bit. It is best to do that. Let the cleaner work itself in there and just leave it to set. So I'm going to cover this up. I'm going to leave this for about an hour, and we'll come back and take a look at that. So right now, time is about 3:10, as you can see here. So we're going to come back to this at about, say, roughly 4 o'clock, and then we'll get this thing turned on. Okay, so we're back. A little bit more than an hour later. So we're going to set this to run. Right now I've got it to set to run about 3 minutes. And like I said, with the ultrasonic cleaner, you don't want to run it for too long. I would probably say no more than that. And there you have it. So pretty much that's one full cycling of ultrasonic cleaner. As I said, I probably wouldn't do it much more than that here. So So you can see all the little junk falling out of it there. And there's still a bit of crud in there, but really not a hell of a lot more. So we'll get all of this out of this and get it to lay out on some paper towel and dry out, and then we'll reassemble it. Okay, once everything is out of the ultrasonic cleaner, I would advise, you know, just rinsing everything in some warm water to get rid of all of the super clean off of it, and then I would just lay them all out on some paper towel. Just leave this all by itself till it's completely dried out before reassembling. So we'll just leave this for however long it takes to dry, and then we'll put our back together. So first thing is, I'm going to get this piece back in here, into the back. Just get it screwed in until the hole in the bottom of that lines up with this hole. You want to make sure that it gets pretty much centered where it's supposed to be. And then this screw comes in here to lock it back in. So the screw we just screwed in, it's going to line up and channel into that. So you're going to turn this until that screw kind of lines up there. And then we want to get the, I forget what this part is called, but it is for part of the trigger. Okay, then we'll get the trigger piece in, get that down in that hole, slide the spring over, and get the retainer back in place. And so that's for your retainer for that. Do exactly the same thing as before. We'll get the wax going here. Just use the end of this screwdriver piece here, and we'll just smudge. You don't really need a lot. You just want enough to get on there to create a seal. And then we're going to screw that back in. Get it, like I said, hand tight, and then just give it a little twist for a torque. And that's it. Get the cap back on. Get the air screw back on. Then we can run a needle back through. Make sure it's nice and seated. And we'll get this O-ring here back into place. And we're going to screw this back in. And there you have it, all back together, nice and clean, ready for work. And there you have it, all 5 airbrushes all cleaned up, back to service. Got a little bit of green paint to clean up on there. Like I said, the body is a matter of a cosmetic thing. You really want the internal functions to be completely clean, free of all kind of dried up paint debris, because that is where all of the problems will occur. So I hope that was pretty useful for you, and hope we don't need to go to this level. Leaving it to get to this point where it is this bad really is not advisable. It is kind of abusive to your airbrushes, so you want to keep them maintained pretty much clean. Basic everyday clean would be to put a little water in the, dump your paint up, put a little water in there, dilute it, swirl it around with a brush if anything, blow some through, maybe do a little backwash or back pressure on it and blow everything back through, and then blow some of that dissolved paint solution through, and just do that a couple of times just to get rid of it till the paint that's coming out the nozzle is pretty much clear. So I hope that was helpful, and hopefully you'll tune in again for our next episode. Thank you and have a great day.
One's up. 5, 6. 1 pin.
Cleared hot, 1.
Cleared hot. 2's up. Hot. One's up. 5, 6. 1 pin.
Cleared hot, 1.
Cleared hot.
2's up.
Hot. One's up. 5, 6. 1 pin.
Cleared hot, 1.
Cleared hot.
2's up.
Hot.